This is for the leaders, the visionaries, the hope bringers, kindness instigators. This is your place to get loved, poured into, activated, and inspired.
Well, welcome back to the show. It's so good to have you here. Today, you have one of the first episodes I talked about in the last episode, where I was telling you that I want to take you deeper into my faith journey, and I am currently working on a book. Right now, I'm calling that book Breaking the Stained Glass. I don't know if that will evolve or change. It probably will. But for right now, that's what I'm calling the book I'm working on, and I'm exploring more of my own journey of moving out of evangelical Christianity into more of a spiritually wide existence. And I have been also mentoring other people through their own transitions of this as well. But I wanted to, in the fall of last year, create a little space where I could explore more of that journey, but have others ask me about it. So this is one of those interviews. It comes from late September of 2025, and you're going to meet Sarah Tiu, who is a good friend of mine. We are going to talk a little bit more at the beginning of the episode about how we know one another. But one of the things that I love about Sarah, she's another writer and another deep thinker and seeker. And so she brings a lot of rich questions to the table. One of the things we also share is we both grew up in evangelical Christianity. And I decided to title this episode a quote that she says directly about not even knowing what was possible for her to dream, because she was also a woman growing up inside of some of these rules that we no longer believe or follow. So I think our episode or our interview is a little over an hour. I am going to break down in the show notes some of the different questions that she asked me and their timestamps, just so that if you are more of a skimmer or you're finding that there's something that you might feel resonant or pulled toward today, maybe that will help guide you. But without further ado, here is Sarah Tiu interviewing me as a part of the book creation for Breaking Through the Stained Glass. All right.
Good to go. All right, Evelyn. My first question, well, I'll start with a statement. When I think of how you and I first really connected, it was because we both enjoy writing and sharing our writing on social media. I love this because social media is often seen primarily for its negative attributes, and it can be scary to be vulnerable on such a platform. But I've found that sharing my writing on Facebook and Substack has led to so many in-person conversations that I wouldn't have had without the use of that particular medium. So for you and I, our specific connection point occurred due to the similarities we've shared in our deconstruction of our evangelical roots. So my first question for you is, in what ways has it helped you to write about your deconstruction process?
Yeah, well, I love acknowledging like the fact that that's what brought us together. Like that we knew of each other, and I think we kind of met in passing before, but not
Yeah,
not really.
yeah.
Um but when it comes to deconstructing and writing, I mean, writing's meant everything because I writing and sharing. So the
Mhm.
writing part, I feel like when I started writing, when I learned more about even how to construct different kinds of writing as early as fourth grade, lost an earring down. uh, that that I it's almost like writing has always helped me make sense of how I feel about things,
Mhm.
and like putting language to my own experience has been crucial for me to even begin to start understanding how I feel about things.
Yeah, yeah.
But to take it further, um, I feel like it's one of those things that it's just felt like such a important thing to share it at times, even though at times there's been like, I don't want to post anything about this because more of the fear of the waters that we
Mhm.
grew up in around having a differing opinion or even having experiences that you're not prepared for or encouraged to have, like, oh, questioning or curious, well, you need to go read your Bible some more because that, I mean, we need more
Yeah,
or more whatever, counsel, anything but the question of curiosity. And
yeah.
I'm always struck too, years into this process, about how curiosity being um, this forbidden thing began in the garden. Eve was
Mhm.
curious. It wasn't
That's
just
a
this
great point.
was this rule. It was there's a curiosity around, well, why put it here in the first place? Why can I not have, this interaction?
Yes.
And I mean, even how I feel about what that could represent anyway, more metaphorical or more just how we understood or how someone understood the nature of how things came to be.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I feel like I could continue going for all different legs off of that. But
Yeah.
I think the other thing about sharing the writing, even though there was fear, is that the same thing has been true, not only our connection, but it's almost like when we give our language and our voice into the world, there are people who hear those words and sentiments and go, wow, like you captured how I felt, but didn't know how to
Mhm.
say it.
Yep.
And I think it's only really become apparent to me, maybe over the last year and a half, and even something I'm still trying to take hold of for myself, that using those gifts of writing that we have, those tools to take experience and put language to it, is so important for other people who may not feel like they have the words. And
Hmm.
even when we're grappling and we're writing, and this as a writer, sometimes it's like we sit and struggle with the right words until they come, because
Hmm.
it's not always so cut and dry. It is a nuanced experience of trying to find the right word that also honors the thought, the feeling,
Right.
sentiment in such a way that it feels transcendent instead
Yeah.
of captured or restrictive, I guess.
Yes, yes. And I've found, and I'm sure you found this to be true too, but it's almost like a straining process too, with like certain relationships where it's like you put your most vulnerable self on the page, and then some people are incredibly offended or distance themselves from you or just don't even take any time to understand that. Whereas others, it like brings to light new possibilities and people that you get to be more yourself around. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that that has happened. But so to move on to the next question that I had about that, what parts of evangelicalism do you think were harmful to you, and what helped to transform your thinking? And you don't, obviously, there could be a lot to that if you want to hone in on something more specific, but something that you can think of that was specifically harmful, and then what helped to transform your thinking around that.
Well, I was actually talking with Serge about this yesterday. And this is kind of a roundabout answer that I'll get to the root of.
Okay.
But
Hmm.
I was going through some old journals and in my emails looking at different archival things that I was just trying to remember and flesh out for myself. And I came across some rubrics for my senior thesis project. I was an art major, and I created this experience that people had to walk through. On one side, you had a picture of a girl, a woman that I knew in my life who maybe had struggled with vulnerability. And we went to places, most of them actually were victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. And we went to places that represented those experiences for them. And I photographed them there. This was supposed to be more about them kind of reclaiming or coming into a different knowing of it. But at the same time, the internal conversation that we're having all the time about our worth and worthiness. And so on one side, you had their picture, it created almost like a hallway. You had their portrait on one side, and on the other, they had a mirror. I had them sit with a mirror and write what they saw uh,
Mm.
in themselves. And so you walk through this tunnel basically of external and internal. And then you come to a point where you have a mirror and you can respond. And at the time, I didn't know what that would even bring about, but people were really moved by that experience. I was moved by the way that people felt in the conversation of the words and the images, and then also the overflow of their own reflection, uh,
Mhm.
literally and figuratively. Um, and when it came time to defend my work as part of the senior thesis, I was shredded by my professors, most of them male. It was a small art department, but we got their rubrics that they graded us off of. And I had one professor who I really trusted and felt close to, who wrote on that paper, "You are not a shepherd." I don't know. I have no context for why this was written. There was nothing, like there was nothing. It was just part of his own processing that he felt that he needed to write out.
Oh
And
my
I
goodness.
thought about that for years after the fact. And then coming across it and reading it again, of being back in that moment of going like, that doesn't even belong to me. This had no place being written on somebody's feedback for their body of work. This
Yeah.
was a personal kind of thing. But when I think about the ways that the evangelical lens has really harmed me the most, it really is around worthiness and around what's available to me as a woman.
Hmm.
These two things, because first, I think the evangelical crux around really focusing on the fall and that we can't be good enough. And we need to tell people that we aren't good enough to ever reach God, and they must do something in order to do that. And that's
Yeah.
claiming Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. But when I read the script, when I read the portions of the Bible that I feel like contend with that, it says nothing can separate us from that love.
Hmm.
Nothing can separate us from the love that exists in Christ Jesus. And I think that that has more to do with a way of being in the world instead of a literal reliance on, I believe in this the way that you have taught me to believe it, and I can
Yeah.
say the same things that you do.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so one of
So
the
it's more experiential than this theory of yes, yes.
yes.
Hmm.
Yes, I don't, and so that comes back into the worthiness piece. I feel like there were so many things that um, I took on as I grew up in the world, discounting my voice, my instinct, my inner knowing, because evangelicism never sat right with me, even
Hmm.
though I was growing up inside of it. And I never really focused on that. I just really wanted people to feel loved, known, seen, and welcome.
Right.
That was what I thought we were doing. Like
Hmm.
in my mind, and that's what I saw modeled for myself. Even now, like I do see a lot of ways that community surrounds, pushes in, and loves people inside of churches. But
Yeah.
I think the dangerous part about all of this is again going, well, you don't know the path. I will show you, I will tell you that path,
Hmm.
instead of again honoring our own inner knowing and experience and wisdom of
Right.
learned experiences of being able to have that. I think that's also kind of kept a lot of places shallow in a sense because it's focused so much um on the ritual instead of on relationship. And I don't think that anyone, at least in my opinion, when you read Jesus and his teachings, if this is what we're building this faith around, if it truly is around having a relationship with Jesus Christ, Jesus was not really focused on people's behavior. Sure,
Hmm.
there was some corrective moments at time, but most of those corrective moments were from people who were claiming to know the truth of God and telling other people how to live that out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it always comes back to that. And then also identity as a woman and a strong woman at that, a strong little girl. And I was reading things from my parents. Like I was commanding groups of teenagers as early as 4, and they listened. And so, and that's some of their favorite memories of me because my dad started out in youth ministry and he would watch as I just like, this is what we're doing. This is what you need to do. And these teenagers would just do it. He's like, they don't even listen to me, but here you are. So, it's one of those things that this is part of the conversation with Serge as well, is that growing up, I felt like I didn't really fit into what I'd been told it looked like to be uh,
Hmm.
a woman of divinity, which was
Yeah.
quiet, very demure, quiet, supportive,
Hmm.
not making waves. Um,
Right.
and that's not me.
Yep.
So, so for me, I always felt like no one's gonna want this. This is loud.
Right.
It's kind of abrasive at times. Like, and it's definitely not demure. So I don't know what we do with that.
So then was there ever a specific like moment or experience or something that helped you, kind of leave that part behind or like let go of some of those ideas to where you could fully embrace like who you are and your voice and, all of that like
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's been a series of moments and
yeah.
years for that to take place. And one of the most transformative things that came into my life was definitely Glennon Doyle
Mm,
Melton. It was Glennon Melton at the time
yes, the
when I
one you're
came in contact with her. I actually, in my early 20s, I felt like God was calling me to pastor. And when I received that beam, I was like, girls, don't do that. That's not
talking.
allowed. And, at the time too, I had told God, I am yours. You tell me where to go. I'll go to Africa. I'll go to
Yep.
China. I will do whatever crazy thing you ask me to do. And when it came down to it, and it was like, well, I want you to pastor my people. And I'm like, I have a vagina. Did you miss that memo? Like, I didn't know that that was a possibility for me.
Mhm.
And that wrecked me in a really beautiful way because I had really been coming up against like, where do I fit? What do I want to do with my life ultimately? I'd graduated with this art degree. I was working as an associate campus pastor at the time at another university. And I had gone to this service, like a worship service, and like nothing was like sitting. I just felt at odds within myself, and I couldn't quite place it. Nothing had been wrong. And then all of a sudden, like it felt like I received, like I said, like the beam, like this clarity of like, this is what I want you to do. I was looking at a pastor that I loved. I still love. His name is John Weiss. He's based in Lexington. And I'm listening to him, and I felt like it was like, this is what I have for you. And I was distraught because
Mhm.
I was like, no, people where I come from, that we don't, that's not, that's my ride. I'm the side piece, not the main piece.
Right.
I'm the support system, not the mouthpiece.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but then again, the more that I sat with it, all the other ways that I tried to fit myself into different roles in my mind, I was like, well, this one, if we're really casting ideas about what this looks like, in practicality, this is actually calling on all the gifts that you have.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's probably the thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, shortly after that, I came across a blog post that Glennon had written. It was actually, she had written a beautiful post around her marriage and how hard it was.
Okay.
And someone had commented, like they do, Glennon, you have a really important platform, and we need to be encouraging people in their marriages, not discouraging them from marriage. So we need,
Not being honest.
yes, we need to fix that. And also, while I'm here, I want you to know, because she had profanity that she'd weaved into it.
Yeah.
I think that you need to work on the profanity because, again, like something like that.
Yeah.
So what I saw was her next post was in response to this
Okay.
specific comment.
Hmm.
And she basically was talking about how when I write from a place that's down in the depths with other people. I do not belong on a pedestal. I don't want to be put on a pedestal. I don't
Mm.
want to be separated from people in their process,
Yes.
life. And by the way, I know some of the most God-fearing, God-loving, incredible leaders in the Christian movement who cuss like sailors. We do it together. It's like, and when I read it and I was reading it, I was like, if her kind of rowdy is
Yeah.
needed, then maybe mine is too.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I
And so
love
it was in the permission of her showing up, right? And taking that on because to me, again, I'm like, I'm not how I'm supposed to look for
yes.
this message that I had received. And I feel like over the last 10 years, it's really been an unpacking, an unfolding, a re-knowing, and a reconnection with that little girl
Yeah.
who didn't need to be anything else except for who she already was.
Right. Yes. I love that. And I love what she was saying about being down in the depths with other people because that's the kind of if you're I mean, if you're using the word pastor, like too many pastors are up on this pedestal where they're separate. And so to take that in, into your and incorporating that into your leadership style or more it's like more the way that you just encourage people to be who they are like that's you're just it's not that you're directing or imposing anything but
Right.
you're coming
It goes
down.
back again to that question of worthiness and hierarchy and these things that I don't actually believe have any place in our places of worship, and in our places of leadership. Because I
Hmm.
think the paradigm as a pyramid, where we have this hope that this pastor, this person in charge, or who's casting vision, would know any more than anyone else. Now we all have different gifts.
Right. Yep.
I think even recognizing that there is leadership and wisdom in the infant, in the 2-year-old, as
Hmm.
much as there is in the 98-year-old, as much as there is in a 36-year-old,
Yeah.
all carry inherent wisdom and knowledge and experience. And so I see too, I am craving and calling in a switch into where we're looking to each other in circle, in community. This isn't one person's
Yes.
thing. It's
Yep.
our thing.
Hmm.
It is something we bring about together. And again, I think that that is far more divine,
Yes, absolutely.
far more moving, and calls into, I think, how we're wired to
Yeah.
move into the world than again the ways that those ideas of perfectionism and performance have kept us separate from each other.
Yes, for sure. That was a great answer. Okay, so my next question. When people begin growing out of the evangelical box, disappointing people that may be dear to them is an inevitable part of the process. Have you found that to be true, and how have you handled
I have found that to be true.
it?
But it hasn't been, at least for me, it
Mhm.
has not been as pronounced or as shunning as I expected it to be,
Yeah, yeah.
especially by people close to me. I think a lot of people just don't, if they feel uncomfortable, they just don't talk to me about it. And that's their choice too. Like I don't bring it up, they don't bring it up. We're
Mhm.
cool. Like we coexist.
Yes, yes.
But that's for more like family.
Uh-huh.
They may not understand and they may not move, but I actually have been encouraged by their lack of involvement. I didn't know. we don't know what to expect
Right. Until we do it.
when we're dissenting, because that's very much how it's felt.
For
Um,
sure.
and uh and then also, on a more public note, I have had people who have made comments that just didn't quite understand what I was trying to say. And from again, from a deep place of compassion in me, I recognize most of their fear and most of the ways that they respond to
Right.
my expression in that fear. And I have compassion for it because
Yeah.
that fear kept me in line and boxes and checking
Right.
things I need
Yeah.
to be saying I could check along the way in order to feel
Yeah.
safe and secure in my belonging inside of that belief system, or at least the way that we've been taught to belong
Right.
to it, which again,
Yeah.
more compliance instead of open dialogue and having conversations where we disagree, but we can also continue to like move forward together.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
so, I feel like the there's just been a lot more receptivity than I actually knew there would be.
Mm-hmm.
Say that too because I want to encourage people who are feeling like
Yeah.
I woke up and everything's different and
Yeah.
my world has changed, but the people who are closest to me can't see it, don't
Yeah.
understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what we spoke about earlier, when we start showing up in the fullness of who we are, admitting the questions that we have, and just telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make some people uncomfortable, and it's going to absolutely cause people again to shrink away or to unfriend or to like get the heck out of Dodge because they're like, no, 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 no. Like you're gonna lead me down a bad path. That's okay. But
Mm-hmm.
then also finding people along the way who are like, hey, I understand what you're going
Yes.
through. And it is like a homecoming in a type of way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember too when I really started deconstructing at first, I was having these experiences again that I would discern or understand in myself, and someone else would write about that same thing. No
Yes.
one told me about this.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I came to in my own experience and
Right.
awareness. And that also felt to me like the kind of faith or the kind of authentic way I've been craving to live for a long time, which is
Yeah.
like from the wellspring and the essence of who I truly am. And that means shedding some of those later layers
Yeah.
and not being able to check the boxes, even though like we knew how to check them. We knew it, we highlighted it, we knew the passages. Like we
Yeah.
knew what to do with that life. But this one feels a little shaky. But like I said, I'm just encouraging it is so disorienting to
Right.
come outside of this and be like, whoa, you're on the outside looking in and going like, this is weird. Like
Mhm.
I lived in this.
I
That's
know.
wild. Like,
Yes, I know. And I don't know if you had this experience at all, but like for me, there was a certain naivety that I had where I felt like some of the discoveries I was having were just like brand new. And so I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be excited about this because I'm so relieved. And like, because there were so many things that had just pressed down on me in a heavy way that, so for instance, like hell, like some of the doctrine of hell. So when I started understanding that there were different ways to think about this, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be so relieved. They were not relieved. They wanted to hold on. And that shocked me
right,
because I thought, what, how are you not, how did you not feel that same sense of not being able to fully live? And so I think that part shocked me. And then once I got through that, then I was like, well, I guess this is, you do expect some level of disappointment.
yeah. No, I don't know. I I think for me it's been like shocking to find out that people can agree and understand what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
did anything, I'm like, this is tracking?
Yeah.
Like,
Now I'm there as well. Yeah.
excellent. This is
Yes,
okay. All right. Because it
absolutely.
felt wild.
Uh-huh.
But all
Yeah.
right. Like it's like this, like that Me Too. Like,
Yes.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Me Too. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Okay. So my next question. I see you as someone very driven. You've talked about this a little bit, but very driven by intuition and curiosity. How do those things lead you to find meaning and purpose? And what experiences are you currently finding meaningful and purposeful? So,
Yeah.
intuition and curiosity, how do those lead you to meaning and purpose?
Yeah. Well, I think that without fully understanding what I've been doing is that I actually have followed a lot of those instinctual knowings or like saying yes to things without a net or even like, I don't know, like, I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's just a yes.
Mhm.
So, following that. Um, but even more than that, watching a dad, like my dad
Mhm.
was, incredibly curious and adventurous and was always instigating that adventure of being like, we don't have a net, but guess what? We know the God who has all the nets. So
Mhm.
let's just don't make it hard. Like he'll give
Yeah.
you a net. Like you need a net, like you're not gonna fall.
Uh-huh.
So having that modeled for me in the way that I saw a lot of my parents' trust and what there were times when my dad started his church that they didn't know how they're going to pay the mortgage. And they would literally get a check from somebody who they hadn't spoken to in years, going like, we just want to bless you in what you're doing. The exact amount they would need.
Mhm.
I remember too, like I think there's been evidence every time I seek to honor that inner knowing or instinct or
Mhm.
curiosity that leads me to a place of more wonder, more possibility, more connection, more love. It's really in the places where I doubt that when I stay stuck or when I feel stuck, when I'm going like, ooh, that feels too big, that
Yeah.
like I'm not having a good time. It's like when
Yeah.
I go back and I trace my life, the places where I've let that instigation be the leader instead of my fear, because I
Yeah.
think that's ultimately what it comes down to, because we've grown up again, even in our religious institutions and places that talk about having
Safe. Yeah.
bigger than what you can understand. Yet most of what we cling to in those environments is again, but here's what
Yeah.
works, and here are the rules, and this is how we play this game. And
Mhm.
it does give people a certain amount of certainty that I think feels nice in our logical brains. But yet again, when we are willing to engage more of that instinctual knowing, more of those questions around, well, I thought God told us to love people. This doesn't feel very loving. This response, this leader who's saying they're leading from a place of being in connection with God, that doesn't seem very divine. That
Mhm.
doesn't seem actually like it is aligned with as long we could get into so
I
many
know. I
here.
know.
Where it's like, well, yeah, I don't even want to touch a toe
Okay.
right now.
Okay. Yes.
So
Yes.
anyway,
That
I'm
was
like,
no, that was good. I like that though. That was a good answer.
yes.
Let's move to what does the word spiritual mean to you now? And has the meaning changed for you on your life's journey?
Yeah, that word felt evil, like at first, spiritual. I
Mhm.
remember too. So I remember going to Washington, D.C. with my parents. This was probably back in 2014, 2015, and we went to Arlington Cemetery, and my dad was really bothered by the number of like different religious honorings they had on these monuments. He's like, how many gods there are, all of these things. things that, again, like my internal's like, yeah, like that is scary, like because there is only the one. Um, and not like being sarcastic, but at the
Yes,
time, it's like it
yes,
didn't really bother me.
right.
Very perturbed. And there are parts of me that grew up in that fear, right? Like it's only the one way that we know. And
Right.
this is going to get you into the place of paradise, is this one path. And um I think what has happened for me, just like that word spirituality, that feels ambiguous. It feels open and big, and like there's room for a lot of satanic stuff in that. Like that's exactly like how it felt threatening.
Hmm.
I think now, again, as I continue on this path, it feels actually like, yeah, I want more room to breathe and play and wonder and be curious
Yeah.
around like what someone's faith, whether or not I knew or understand how they grew up, to learn from that person and the wisdom and what it has meant to them. And that
Mhm.
includes people who grew up in the Christian faith. There's conversations that I don't think he would mind me saying this, but I think Serge really struggles with the amount of things that have gone on in the name of just being on somebody's religious team.
Yeah.
Has especially war, especially to go and have decisions made where you're making decisions about people's life and death based on what you believe religiously.
Mhm.
And so, because he did not really grow up religious, so for him, it's all trippy. He's like, wow, you used to believe that, which actually helped me. At times during my own deconstructive process, when I'm talking about it and I have this fear and this dread and these tears, and I have this man looking at me going, like, this is wild. Like, that this could be bothering you so much. Like, that, like, it's not real. Like, so on one hand, it was not helpful because I'm like, you don't get
You
it.
don't get it. Yeah.
But on the other hand, it was going like, and here's a real life example of someone who doesn't belong to those agreements and it's not stressing them out in the
Yeah.
least.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of envy that. Like,
Uh-huh.
why is it such a big deal? Why can't I have questions? Why can't I be asking these things that don't make
Right.
sense and these things don't line up? Why can't I be going, wait, uh,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
that is that the way we're going with that? Because
Yeah. Yep.
that doesn't, these two things are not the same.
Right. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so as far as that goes with spirituality, I feel like the same thing as it's wide open.
Yeah.
It is to me feels like more of an invitation into that expansive place where I feel like we could never know all the dynamics of God just with our one experience.
Hmm.
Isn't
Yep.
that why we need each other to experience different aspects of all the things?
Yes. Yes. I love that because and it sounds to me too like you're sort of you could almost um either like add or substitute the word creativity because it's like
Yeah.
it's this maybe the source of creativity is that what you're saying there, that spirituality. We've touched on this a little bit, but if you have any more to say, we can go to this next question. I know you've enjoyed books by Megan Watterson, and I'm curious how your views on womanhood have changed over the years and what ideas get stirred when you hear the phrase divine feminine.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think for me, the feminine, again, it started out, I even had like irregular periods for a long time.
Mhm.
Part of that, I think, anyway, I think part of me, I believe, going back to spirituality too, I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I believe that to be true. I think that so much has been baked into identity around our sex, things that weren't actually ever meant for us to hold, around what's allowed or permitted or permissible based off of our sex, at
Mhm.
least coming up in religion. So for me, what I would have even inherently, like if we had talked when I was younger, I would tell you that I believe that women are powerful, that we're here to
Right.
do mighty things. But that was lip service because I
Yeah.
actually didn't believe that that was allowed for me.
Yeah, there was
For
still a limit.
other women, it could be for other people. But I
Yeah.
actually didn't value that in myself. And I think there is this idea too, again, growing up in the shadow of Eve,
Mm,
of a mistake that I didn't make, that I so many things that were pinned on women.
right.
It's the root of like not being able to make decisions. Don't trust them with your bank account. Blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. We could go on and on and on. The things that, and even my own dad, I mean, he joked, which as an aside, and I think it's important for people to know, my dad never, ever told me that I could not do the things I felt called to do.
Right. Yes.
He
It was
was
more,
one of the
yes.
biggest champions and proponents for the expansive things. He did not believe that God's gifting was based on sex. That's
Mm-hmm.
just not something he ascribed to, which I'm grateful for. Uh,
Yeah.
he was always a huge advocate and champion for me. And he was my first call that night that I felt like I got that bing. And I call him and I'm distraught. And he says, "Well, that doesn't surprise me at all." And I'm like, "That's not what you're supposed to say. I think you were supposed to say, yeah, maybe sleep on it." Like,
Yeah.
anyway, so coming back to the divine feminine, I think it has taken again some really hard lookings at actually how I have disvalued and also hated being a woman
Mhm.
inside of the infrastructure of the church because of the ways that I had inherently or like tuned
Yeah.
into how I didn't fit and I wasn't the right kind of girl, the right
Mhm.
kind of pastor's wife, like whatever
Yeah.
that is.
Right. Right.
And so when I think about how that's changed for me of looking at and falling into or even being in the question of what does it actually mean to love
Yeah.
a woman? What if I'm here actually to have this experience as a woman?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the invitation in that? And what is the beauty in that? What if that's actually like really divine too? Not this
Yeah.
thing that we have to go, oh, I'm a girl. Like, oh, I wish I wasn't a
Right.
girl. Like
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah. Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
holding into
Yeah.
because again, there just were so many places that I think without even knowing it, I felt like I didn't belong
Mm-hmm.
under it all. Because no matter what, I think growing up inside the church in the leadership as part of my family. Like it was just an extension
Right.
of who I was. There was no question in my mind about belonging in that way. But it's
Right.
not something I think under all of it I ever felt actually accepted into. Not really. Not in
Yeah.
the fullness of who I was. But that's
Yeah.
something again I didn't really understand or know.
Right.
That most of that was just like instinctual confidence. It had nothing
Yeah.
to do with true belief.
Yeah.
And like,
Well, and because so I was invited to officiate my first wedding this last weekend. And Mark and I were talking ahead of time and I'm like preparing and stuff and practicing and stuff and he looked at me and he was just like, "This is your dream come to, this is you've always dreamed of doing this, haven't you?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, because I didn't know I could dream to do this.
yes,
Like I dreamed of being the bride. I dreamed of being a bridesmaid, maybe a maid of honor, but I didn't dream of officiating because I never saw a woman officiate ever. Like it wasn't even a possibility. And so that's where I think it didn't matter. Your dad can reaffirm, all of your giftings and stuff, but when you don't have it represented for you in some way, then you don't even know to dream and it sucks because how limiting is that?
yes,
In the world, like for all of these different roles where we could be bringing our things, but we don't even know to dream about it because it's difficult to when you don't see it. Yeah.
right. Well,
Mhm.
and to take that even further, when we think about the archetypes that were even shown growing up in the evangelical faith, they are all men. And the
Mhm.
women that we are we're told in the stories are again, they're their helpers for these
Yeah.
amazing men that did incredible things. But
Hmm.
we're really, I mean, Mary, even the mother of God, right? It's always, at least for me, it was always about her great responsibility, even though she was so chaste and so pure and so young. And
Yeah.
the more that I've learned again about actually what she probably was, which was an incredibly powerful priestess
Yeah.
who had her own wealth, who made
Mm-hmm.
her own decisions, and who probably actually chose to engage in something called it's Hyro something. It's a specific kind of ritual that people used to do in order to invoke or bring about like a being into the world that is here to do great work. And when you take Mary, even in that instance, from being this young child who was innocent and really didn't know, but she was just being God's vessel,
Right.
to a woman who knew her own mind,
Mm-hmm.
felt empowered, and could make decisions and had wealth and money, because a lot of things point to that.
Mm-hmm.
It changes the dynamic and the power that I think that Mary brings to the story in a
Mm-hmm.
different way, especially if you're a woman listening, because that changes something for us
Mm-hmm.
of going like, hmm, that's kind of powerful. Like I get goosebumps.
I agree. No, I agree.
And again, when you talk about instinct and inner knowing, and when I say that and our body goes expansive into that possibility, I think again that's like, and is that truth? Is that our body going like, oh, this is the truth
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know I needed to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And isn't it funny though, because we had like I feel like inside of our doctrine existed the idea that God is neither male nor female. And yet, when it came down to it, it was fine to talk about God as father. It was fine to talk about, God in all of these male terms, but to address God as mother or to, and at least within the Catholic faith, you're at least allowed to pray to Mary. You've at least got that kind of feminine perspective there. But within ours, it was just like, so it's so weird to have both of those things. Like you've got this expansive, neither male nor female, and yet you're limited in the vocabulary you can use and the images you can use. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and I feel like if you think about it too, like what are the women that we know of? Really, it's like Ruth, Boaz,
yeah.
Esther, Eve, should have started with Eve,
You should
uh,
have.
Mary, the mother, and Mary, the whore, which,
Yeah.
way, Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute.
No.
So again, like, and if you could look that up, like the
Yeah.
Catholic, they apologized for this,
Hmm.
saying we've been perpetuating something that actually wasn't true.
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, maybe it was to discredit, maybe it was to create distrust.
Hmm.
What is
Yeah.
that? Oh, we would never do that, would we? So
Yes.
why would
Yep.
we do a thing like that? That's silly.
Hmm. No, that was good. I love that, Evelyn.
You
Um,
know, and the other thing too, just around like the
yeah.
divine feminine and images of women, when I saw the first Superwoman, like with Gal Gadot, there's a train outside. I don't know if you can hear it.
I can't hear it.
Okay, it is loud. So I'm like, it's either going completely over top of me or it's not. Gal Gadot plays, you know, Wonder Woman.
Okay.
And it was the first time for me, I cried because I had never seen an archetype of a powerful woman in control who could kill you,
Yeah.
who also chose mercy.
Hmm.
Like it to me, it looked like the divine feminine. It
Yeah.
was, yes, she was kind and she was loving, but she also took justice into her own hands when she had to do it. And you
Hmm.
watch her struggle with some of this too and trying to choose to save. But I cried because I had never seen that strength in a woman portrayed in such a way. Again, talking about representation, like
Yes.
we see women at the forefront of
Yeah.
these of superhero movies. Like it's becoming, we've
Yeah.
shifted some of that over the
Right.
last few years, And I think it will only continue, which I'm grateful for. But
Right.
when you think about, when we really stop to think about who in our life has shown up consistently with bravery and courage, making hard decisions and trying to be loving and just, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that men haven't, but when we
Yeah.
think about that, most of those stories are women.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I think there's something really important for us to hear as women in understanding that when we step into our inner knowing, into our strength, into living courageously and telling the truth about who we are and standing up for the things that we believe are right,
Mm-hmm.
that moves the needle.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I
Yeah.
think we need to hear that over and over and over. You standing up in the advocacy of your story, of your truth is important. It's needed. And
Mm-hmm.
it will cause waves.
Yes.
A good thing. We
Yes.
need them. We
Yes.
need those. And we need women leading in the places and making decisions as women to change and revolutionize a lot of our systems. I think it
Yes.
does come back to the divine feminine.
Yes. It's funny hearing you talk about Wonder Woman made me think of I can't remember what grade I would have been in, either fifth or sixth, when Drew Barrymore's version of Cinderella, it was called Ever After, came out. I don't
It's
know if
one of
you
my
ever
favorite movies.
Okay, I watched it and I never I was like, why did I love that movie so much? But she was so strong. Like she was a different and she wasn't like your classic beauty. She was there was a time there's a scene like toward the end where she, takes the swords and like releases herself from her captor and then the prince shows up and he's like, "Oh." like
I came to rescue you, but you didn't need rescuing, clearly.
And so I think for me as a little, that was like so important for me to see that movie and to have it. I mean, I watched it. I could probably recite the whole thing. I watched it so
We
many
need to
times.
watch it. It is
We
one of
should.
my favorite movies.
We
I could
should. I
never.
agree. Me too. Me
I
too. I need to
always
make my
though,
boys watch it.
I always skip the first scenes. I just like the very first scene anyway for me.
Hmm.
It's just
Yeah.
even before I lost my dad,
I know it was. It is. It's so
I was
sad.
like, I know what happens. Let's
I
go to
know.
the next stage in the story.
Yeah, go to the next one. I know. I know. Well, let's see, Evelyn. So we've got, how much time do we have left? Because I've got a few more questions, but
Um,
yeah.
I'm good on time. We
Okay.
can go as long as you can go, and then we're good. So you,
Well, okay, let me do this. Let me see. Okay, let me just go to this next one. It's you are a nature lover. In what ways do you see nature and spirituality as being connected?
you know what? I wouldn't have called myself a nature lover until a few years ago. And even then, I still feel like is that true? Serge would say that for sure. But I grew up with, I don't live with him anymore. My brother, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's a nature lover. He's one of those like it's like, did you show up from the dirt for this? He truly loves to sleep on the ground and climb rocks and all that stuff. And he
Yeah.
always came back with rocks. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, I think there was this what happened when my dad passed in 2020 is we put a room back into the house for me and that was his office and
Mm-hmm.
what my mom needed the most was for that room to be changed pretty quickly so like I
Yeah.
came in, painted it and changed it up almost immediately maybe
Right.
within the first week that he had passed
Yeah.
and I had a space in my room that was kind of awkward. And I remember talking to a friend because she was good with interiors, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this random corner. There's not like enough space to put furniture there, but it's kind of empty. And she was like, well, why don't you get a plant stand and put a plant on it? And I was like, hmm, plants. Okay. So I bought pothos, which is like a vining plant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was amazed. I brought one in, and then shortly after that, it's like tattoos. It's like we went
Yeah.
from one to like, there's some things happening here. Like, There was like plants everywhere. But what I was amazed by is how much comfort
Hmm.
having those plants was to me, as like I was grieving one of the things that I never wanted to face. Even
Yep.
as a little girl watching Lion King, always skipping over Mufasa.
Yep.
Like I
Hmm.
can't, no, it wrecks
Hmm.
me every time. And so this is something I never ever really wanted to have to walk through. And
Hmm.
when like I said, it started changing me just by being in relationship, like noticing them. Um,
Hmm.
and it felt so important in ways that, again, I couldn't really articulate. And
Hmm.
the more time that I pay attention to that inner knowing and instinct of when I'm craving water, putting myself beside water, when I'm
Hmm.
craving trees, putting myself among trees,
Hmm.
really noticing, and something changed from nature's outside of me into, again, relationship is
Yeah.
nature is part of my very ecosystem.
Hmm.
It's actually a way that I think that God, the divine, speaks to us, shows us things that we can connect in different ways into our creativity, into questions. And when you think about even the wisdom of trees, like a lot of the trees that are around us, at least here in Kentucky, a lot of them are pretty old.
Yep.
They've had a lot of time to be established. When you think about even honoring them or listening or asking for wisdom from the trees, there
Hmm.
is something really, really powerful about that if we take it seriously. We get to choose or even to test. Um,
Yep.
but I feel like I have learned more about life, also watching seasons and noticing the rhythm of the natural world around me and recognizing that I am actually part of that world
Yes.
instead of separated from it.
And
And
you don't have to be the outdoorsman to be the nature lover.
well, I would just say that that's really new for me, and that has
Yes.
come around this deconstructing process through grief,
Yeah.
also the noticing, because for me, it just didn't feel important. It didn't feel intrinsic, but it
Mhm.
is deeply vital, I think, to our health and our well-being in ways that like you just can't know until you start trying it out.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I observe that's helped me, I mean, we're talking about like just becoming more expansive in your ideas, your, what's allowed in nature, like everything's allowed. It's like so many weird things have, evolved and come to be that it's just like, huh.
Right. Right. They didn't have any
How do
rules.
you
They did it
think?
anyway. Like, what are you doing here in this flower bed?
Yeah.
Plan for you? Like, what are you doing here?
Yes, but it all gets to be a part. So yes, so I love that. Okay, let me do one more serious question, and then I've got one funny one or less serious one to end on.
Okay.
But okay. What is something in the world that grieves you right now? And on the flip side, what is something in the world that's giving you hope right now?
I think something that grieves me is the great fear of the other. Again, this idea that someone outside of ourselves could hold so much power when we don't even take the time to know them.
Mhm.
I think that's largely by design because, again, to keep people separated from one another keeps people in power in places of power because no one's there to basically question what's going on. But if we really started examining the other, the person who we feel triggered by, who we feel doesn't get it, who we feel, all of those things. If we'd really stop to examine our own experience of wondering and being curious with, and again, honoring instead of that person being outside of us, looking at it again, maybe this is someone, this is my neighbor, what if I treated this neighbor as my child, as someone I valued, as someone, again, I wanted to understand instead of I wanted to change or do anything differently, but instead just even having the honor to be in relationship with, even if we disagree, but making space for conversation that considered um,
Well,
more than
yeah.
our own perspective.
Mhm.
Uh, because I think that a lot of that, and you know, the other part of that also is just the other thing that is bringing me so much grief is greed. It is truly greed and the love of power that comes with greed, because greed in of itself is, I think, pillaging, uh, pillaging our communities. It is stripping our it's stripping our food sources of value. It's just, I mean, it is rampant. So I think we've cut so many corners in the process in pursuit of making profit. And it's coming at a large cost to health, well-being, and community. And I think the costs are too great to continue at the pace at which
Yeah.
modernity has asked for us to in that way.
Yeah.
Um, so those would be the two. And you said on the flip side, what's
Yeah.
encouraging?
What is giving you hope right now?
Um, Giving me hope is having, well, I mean, really and truly, it's really been a lot of the romanticy. Uh,
That's leading me to my last question.
Sarah turned me on to a genre called romanticy. I can't tell you how many years so years ago, which I used to again make fun of the old man for listening to podcasts when I was in high school. I'm like, you're listening to people talk again? You know, and then when I started to get into it, I was like, oh, this is different. And then when completely stopped reading fiction and only read nonfiction for, you know, a decade plus. So when you posted about this book, I was like, I think I had read a couple fiction in the fall, and they were more around witches coming into their powers. And there were, you know, fictional things. And by
Mhm.
the way, if you're listening to, the original term for witch just meant wise woman. They
Uh-huh.
were bliss. They were women who worked with nature, who understood how to give you an herb that would take away your cramps or would help give you natural medicinal properties from the earth that would help you again be in different kind of relationship with your body than maybe you were experiencing. And again, that's a whole other,
Yep.
but so the romanticy has been a really, really good gift to me in this season because I feel like when we're talking about expansive thoughts of ways of engaging in the world and challenging ourselves to think outside of the box, these entire worlds of creativity, I see so much
Mhm.
storyline though that parallel
Yes.
what we're facing here, but so many archetypes of powerful women and men who are
Yes.
supporting those women in
Exactly.
their endeavors.
Uh-huh.
And so for me, it's been just like this, like, yes, you are the solution. You always were the solution. And the guy next to you is like, and that's so hot.
Oh no, not threatened by it in the least.
No,
Yeah.
no.
That's so
And that's
funny.
what I mean, you know, we've talked about this though too. I experienced that in my partnership with Serge. Like Serge
Yes.
loves how powerful I am. He
Yeah.
loves my strength and the boldness. I mean, sometimes too it's annoying, I'm sure.
Sure. Sure.
This is
Yes.
too. He's a bold flavor too. In some ways. You know, we all have our stuff. But it was funny too because this is just an aside, but I'm
Yes.
a picky eater and I tend to prefer like I like butter, salt, garlic. Like we could go anywhere with these things.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Someone had coriander or whatever. I don't know. I have a very white palate and I like it that way. And and I'll call it classic. I have a classic
Uh-huh. A
taste.
classic.
Serge likes very overpowering flavors, and it became this kind of joke. I'm like, well, hello, I am an overpowering flavor, so it's everywhere for you. So I just thought,
You're exactly what he wants. That's fun.
yes, yes. Anytime we're watching like a show, he typically is drawn, even if they're, the villain and they're the,
Uh-huh.
who is it in Game of Thrones? Cersei.
Okay.
He has never watched it all the way through, but
Okay.
anytime she's around, he's like, there's something about that. I'm like, yeah, he's a
Okay.
strong leader. She knows what she wants. So I'm not surprised.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so this is perfect because it leads me right into my last question.
Yeah.
So, my question to you, Evelyn, would you rather be able to shapeshift into a high fae and live out your days or in Valeris, or be a dragon riding professor at Bisgayeth War College? And why?
Hmm. Dang it.
I know it's so hard.
I don't really want to be a professor.
Okay,
Okay, I'm neither.
that's good.
Okay, I want, I want to be, actually, so we haven't talked about this yet. So I was supposed to report back.
Yes.
I'm in the middle of the Glass Throne series with,
Okay, me too.
I'm on, I'm on the
Air
third.
of Fire.
Yes, I haven't
That's the one
started
I'm
that,
on.
but I'm like it's next for me.
Okay.
When I was waiting, because I've been doing that through Libby,
Right.
my cousin told me about the For Blood and Ash series,
Okay.
and I am devouring it right now. So
Oh,
in
good to
there, they
know.
have the Wolven, so like wolves,
Uh-huh.
and some vampire stuff. And so like I've always been into vampires. I mean,
Okay.
take me back to what is it? Vampire Diaries?
Uh,
I did you watch Vampire
I
Diaries?
did not. No, I don't know if I was
Because
allowed.
I'm always Team Damon, girls. Like from the jump, I was always Damon. Stefan, not my flavor, but Damon,
Okay.
absolutely. So there's a through line through this, but it's kind of like I'm enjoying that so much. Okay, so I love Valaris. I love the way that so I think what I would like is I think that I would be um hmm, I guess I would be High Fae and Valaris. I think that's what I would choose
I
over
think
the
too.
Dragon Rider tutor, or not tutor,
Professor.
professor
Yes.
as Besgaius.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Because to me, I don't know. I think I also want more flexibility. Like,
Uh,
but I want the permission to have my own dragon. I have a dragon in Valaris, and um so I don't have to choose. I get to have a dragon, and I can be high fae, and I'm powerful, and I have a really, really bomb ass wardrobe. Like I always
Oh, I know.
have
The night
unlimited
court.
funds in these books. Like we just, we had this tailored,
I
and
know.
it was
I
made for you. And I'm like, must be nice. I
I know,
want
and
my
it
wardrobe
sparkles like the
would
stars.
right, right. It catch the shit. I'm like, yeah, I want that.
I
And
know. No,
some,
that would be my choice too. High Fae, live it out in Valeris, and I would join the art club that
yeah, it seems so fun.
I'd go to that painting club.
Yes, yes. And having, talk about creativity. I bet they come up with unique solutions to different problems and scenarios. That's the
Hmm.
other thing too is um I think when we give ourselves that permission to follow the creativity, to the wonder, to be in these stories that feel bigger, that feel like different worlds are created in our hearts and our
Yeah.
like remembering like we have that ability each and every day
Yeah.
to create that for ourselves, for our families, for the communities that we live inside of. Those things
Yeah.
that I love
For
about them, we can infuse here, no matter what the narrative is that feels like they've got a boot on our neck or
sure. Hmm.
whatever. Like,
Hmm.
no, off.
Yep.
Okay. No, I refuse. I refuse. I refuse.
I know. I'm with you. Yes. Well,
Yes.
thanks, Evelyn. That was perfect. Those were all of my questions,
Well,
and they
thank
were
you.
your
I
answers
really
were wonderful.
appreciate you and your creativity with them too. It's tons of fun.